So a lot of people are giving Eyes in the Dark unique pants a really bad rap, saying it's completely useless or unusable. And while I would say in some scenarios that may be right, I'm going to prove to you today why this is a must-have in your in-game builds. To completely understand these uniques, we have to first look at the death trap. Is you place a trap that arms after X amount of seconds. It activates whenever an enemy moves within range, dealing a total of X amount of damage to each enemy in the area. We further buff this by the Prime Death Trap. Enemies are pulled into Death Trap when it activates, and Supreme Death Trap. If Death Trap kills an enemy, its cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. You can make the Death Trap more viable by adding things like Trap Mastery, which is going to give you more critical strike chance against vulnerable and crowd control enemies for 4 seconds, as well as Exposure. Dealing direct damage to an enemy affected by a trap skill has up to a 25% chance to reduce the active cooldowns of your trap skills by 20%, drop a cluster of exploding stun grenades that deal X amount of damage, and stun enemies for X amount of seconds, as well as Twisting Blades on the final tree. Advanced Twisting Blades. When your Twisted Blades return, your active cooldowns are reduced by 0.10 second per enemy they pass through, up to 2 seconds. So at base, just with the death trap, it's pretty amazing by itself. If you can group up a big group of adds and you can stick some Twisted Blades into an enemy and drop your death trap, it'll suck them all into the middle and you dash to the other side of them or roll through them all, and then all the blades will pass through all those enemies that got sucked into the middle. It'll also be killing enemies and you'll also be killing enemies, so it'll pretty much reset your death trap every time as long as you have a certain amount of enemies within it. So that's just the death trap by itself. Now let's add in the Sacred Unique, Eyes in the Dark. Its perk is, unless it hits a boss player, Death Trap will continue to rearm itself until it kills an enemy. However, Death Trap's cooldown is increased by 21%. Like it can be anywhere from 15 to 30%, just depends on the drop. Now if you're playing solo and you're doing content at your level, this is completely useless, and it's just adding around 20% cooldown to your Death Trap abilities. As you can see, if we unequip these pants and we look at our death trap cooldown, currently it's at 42.3. And if we equip the pants, the cooldown of death trap goes up to 51.19, so pretty much 9 extra seconds just for equipping the pants. So if you think of it this way and you're running solo and you're not really having a problem with killing things and you do not want to run these pants, because it's just going to pretty much increase your cooldown by 10 seconds, and you don't really need that because you're not going to get the benefit because it's always going to be killing an enemy, so it won't be re-triggering. However, my argument for why these pants are amazing and you should be running them is if you're doing A, group content, which scales and makes enemies harder, or B, if you're running content way above your level, like nightmare dungeons. If you're finding enemies to be like too hard to kill, more than likely when you use this Sacred Unique and you drop a death trap, it'll keep rearming itself until it kills something, but it'll also be getting those active cooldowns, and by the time it does kill something, it's going to kill quite a few things and you'll pretty much get it back how you normally would. So you have the benefit of it keep rearming until it kills something, especially if you're dropping it on an elite, a super tanky elite, and that's the only thing you're fighting. It'll literally just keep dropping and dropping. You don't even have to fight it. You can just run away, run through it, and keep dropping like a poison trap to knock it down. So these pants are very beneficial for like higher tier content that's way harder, and enemies have way more health, as well as if you're like in a group of 4, then enemies will scale up. So it really depends on your play style. If you're running content your level solo, I wouldn't recommend running these, but if you're running content way higher than yourself or in a big group and everything seems to have a little too much health and you're not killing them with the normal trap, you definitely want to be running these. I pretty much always run these because I don't really have a problem with the cooldowns, even if the enemies are at lower level. I have the cooldowns pretty low from things like my Paragon board and also just the Twisted Blades if you're using them correctly. So it really depends on your play style and if you're used to them. So yeah, it's instead of looking at this unique like a never use, I would always save a pair if you ever get one. Definitely save it if you find content too hard, and it's definitely worth doing. A little side note is if you drop the trap on a huge group of high level enemies and it's keep re-triggering itself, and you're also stabbing enemies with Twisted Blades, you can get multiple traps at the same time down. I've had up to like 4 traps going at once, which is pretty crazy. And on top of that, you're getting like life steal from this from other sources, so you can pretty much just sit in there and not die. You become super tanky, and that's why I think Eyes in the Dark unique unique pants are definitely worth holding on to and using if you're doing harder content. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe or share with a friend. That would help me out a lot, and make sure to get outside and touch some grass.